a lot of degrees nowadays are not even teaching residential design for interiors, so they might not even touch business skills. But the advantages that come with having business skills is that you can know how to price your projects when you're starting out, and you can understand your margins and your markup and how to get a profit out of each project. And then you can have your contract and learn when to take a retainer and how to write project scope and what to do when there's scope creep. And you're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to episode 175 of Design Curious podcast. Today on the podcast, we are continuing in the Design Skills series, and this week we're talking about things that they don't actually teach you in design school. So if you didn't go to design school and you're thinking that maybe you're missing out on some of the things that you need for your business, well, I'm here to share with you that there's a lot that they don't teach you in design school that you actually need to know to be a successful designer. So I'm going to touch on those today. And if you did go to design school, then you will understand that these things were not taught to you in your design program. But these are all things that the modern designer must know, and it's not covered in the classroom. A lot of things have changed over the years too. So some of the programs might not have adapted to the changes that are taking place and the mindset shifts and the thought models that are now happening in the design industry, which is very much more open and giving. I feel like the residential designers are much more willing to share than they were in 20, 30 years ago. So these are all things that everyone needs to work on to create a great foundation as an interior designer, and that the industry really should just start to focus and include these, I think, in the design programs. But I understand that there's, a limitation of time, and learning the practical skills are probably the most important part of the design degree. But it's just leaving you not fully equipped for the real world. Okay, so let's get into what those skills that are missing are. The first skill we're going to talk about that you need beyond the degree is that you need business skills. Business skills are not optional. Every program for residential interior design should have multiple business classes, because most residential designers end up starting their own business and working independently. It's really the best model for making the most profit. Of course, we've talked about this before. There's risk involved with owning your own business, and there's no shame in working for another designer throughout your career. That's totally fine as well. Not everybody's set up to be an entrepreneur. However, a lot of designers do want to have autonomy. So having your own business is the way to do it. Not just freelancing, but actually having a business. And so business is a whole nother ball game. It's something that is just not regularly taught. And even a lot of degrees nowadays are not even teaching residential design for interiors, so they might not even touch business skills. But the advantages that come with having business skills is that you can know how to price your projects when you're starting out, and you can understand your margins and your markup and how to get a profit out of each project. And then you can have your contract and learn when to take a retainer and how to write project scope and what to do when there's scope creep. And having a whole mindset around money matters so much as a skill set. So all of these business related skills are things that we address in My Design Mentor, but also a lot of other business coaches can help you with. And so that is definitely something you're going to want to invest in. Always be looking for professional development throughout your career. And so business skills is definitely going to be one you're going to spend some time on, because it doesn't come naturally for most designers. So that's where we need to put a lot of effort. And it's going to be one of the most important things that they don't teach you in school that you really need to know. The next skill that you really need to know that they don't teach you with a degree is how to create a client experience and how to service your client properly. Residential interior design is a luxury service. It has certain expectations, and it is not always understood what the luxury expectations are. Even things like managing timelines and the communication with your client, some of those soft skills that we talked about last time are going to come into play here. And creating processes and touch points that help each project to feel elevated. As the designer, you are the guide for your client, taking them through a process of improving their home, improving their life. And there's going to be a lot of service that happens in that. And speaking of service, if you haven't read Unreasonable Hospitality, it's about the restaurant business, but has so many applications to all industries. And that's really gets to the heart of what service is and how it is an elevated practice. And what are those touch points? What are the details that need to happen to make sure that client experience is top-notch and really worthy of referral? Most programs don't have the luxury of time to spend on developing those types of skills and thinking through the experience process. The next thing that a degree probably isn't not going to touch on is the technology in interior design. Now, they will do CAD, like computer-aided drafting and rendering and all those technology things. But there's so much more that goes into the business side with technology and AI literacy. Currently, we are in an AI revolution. Almost every app and program has AI integration. And we're still navigating and learning how to appropriately use those skills in interior design. A lot of it can be used in creating copy and writing emails and things like that people have already started to use pretty regularly. It can be helpful with marketing and things like that. But we're also starting to learn the limitations of AI. So really understanding how it can help with automations and processes and maybe brainstorming and things like that to really help cut down on the time spent on certain areas so you can have more time to spend in the creative mode. So that's where I think AI is going to really take us, is really cutting back on some of the more tedious tasks that we do so that we can really excel in our creativity. And they're not going to replace us for coming up with a design. If you ask ChatGPT to come up with a design for a room and then ask it again and again and again, it's going to get marginally worse each time. And so as opposed to asking a person to do it and revise, and it's going to get better each time. So there are a lot of limitations. I know it's going to look so much different 5 years from now than it is in 2026, but it's something to definitely be cognizant of. And I doubt that they spend a lot of time of that in design programs today. But the other technology you need to know is things like CRM, which is a client management software, or maybe even your accounting softwares. There's some that are just programmed for interior design businesses because we have kind of a unique business model, especially if you're selling product. So there's a lot of technology there. We use so many different apps and programs within interior design that there's a lot to learn, and they're definitely not going to cover all of that in class. So so that's going to be your third area that they don't teach you in design school that you need to learn in the real world. And next we'll move on to marketing and visibility. Most design programs will have you work a little bit in graphic design. Sometimes they'll bring in adjacent design and fine arts and things like that. So you might understand, negative space and typography or things like that. But that's not marketing, and that's not helping to get your business visible and your portfolio visible. Designers today really have to understand branding. Now, you don't have to understand everything about it, but you need to understand enough to know what you need, first of all. One of my favorite branding books is The Story Brand by Donald Miller. And so that kind of helps you understand how to speak to people about your business and how to write your copy so that it's not all centered around you as the designer. It's really centered around the client. So it's a storytelling process, and you can use that in your social media and on your website, really important things there. So I'd recommend that book. You're not going to be assigned that book while you're in the design program. These are things you have to do on your own outside of that. And then you will need help marketing and presenting your portfolio online. Now, a lot of design programs do have digital portfolios. They help you develop, but it's all going to be, of course, your projects from school, which are great, renderings and floor plans and things like that. But it's not going to be any real world experience. And so once you get that, you have to then learn how to hire the right photographer and how to stage the photos and all those things that go into that you're not going to learn with a design degree. And then also learning how to network in the industry, but especially outside of the industry, with referral partners, with other adjacent businesses, architects, engineers, people like that. They're not going to tell you how to network with those people. So that's another thing. You need to develop that skill outside of the design degree. Okay, moving on. The next one is leadership and decision making. They definitely didn't spend any time teaching me how to be a leader in my design program, but leadership is so important. We've talked about this before. Even as a solopreneur, you are a leader on your project. You are a leader to your clients. You are a leader to anyone who might be looking to you as a mentor. And there's just so much that goes into learning how to be a great leader. There are ways to not be a great leader, and it becomes evident over time. So that is something you need to develop, a skill that is really helpful. One person that I love working with to help develop my leadership skills is Sierra Collins, and I've had her on the podcast a couple of times. And so she is great at leadership development, and you can seek out a coach like her to do that. There's also so many great books. I'm sure I have a lot on my list, my book list, that you can go look on Amazon, my shelf, and see all the books that I recommend. Or if you're in My Design Mentor, we have our book club. And so they will all be in there as well, because there's so many great books to help you develop the leadership. It might be something that doesn't come naturally, might not be a natural leader. And so it's something that you can build on over time. But you definitely are a leader in your projects and in your life and with your clients. But it helps to build confidence and authority when you're in meetings. And then making and communicating decisions clearly comes along with leadership. Another valuable skill to develop. And then another skill you want to work on is personal skills that support success. So this would be things like time blocking and your workflow habits. How do you manage overwhelm? You might be growing and taking on more projects than you're used to, and you might get overwhelmed. How do you manage that? Do you call in a lifeline, have another designer come and help you, or an intern, or do you look to a coach, or do you double down on your systems? But it's a really important skill to learn how to manage your time and your workflow and your habits. And that it helps to support your business, and it helps build resilience. So these are all different areas, the 6 of them that I identified that are not something that you will learn in design school. And these are things that we all need to work on. I've been working on these for a long time, and I still am. I'm always learning. I'm always growing and trying to improve. It's exciting to me because I always think how I can improve the client experience, improve my enjoyment of the experience as well, because this is my life. This is what I do day in and day out, and I want to make sure I'm enjoying my time and make sure it's spent wisely. So developing these skills will definitely help with that. So if you're needing help to identify areas that you might be lacking of anything that I might have said, or just develop those more, or if you're just starting out and you're like, I have no clue that I needed all of these things to be an interior designer, then I suggest you get into My Design Mentor. It's my mentorship program, and we definitely talk about this in there. There's 12 learning modules that covers a lot of this. What I'm talking about here, skills to develop. You can meet with me one-on-one, and we can talk about ways to work on these skills and how to develop them further. All right, that's all I have for you this week. Next week, I'll have another great episode for you. And until then, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.